All right, good morning, everyone. I'm going to ask people to come in with their
Recording in progress.
coffee and see if I can get us started. Get us all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And I see that we have Councilmember Cohen on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just, first of all, say thank you to my colleagues. I know to the colleagues and staff that last night was a very late night. And we started early, and we have some colleagues that are finishing up a meeting that began earlier today. I'm going to just remind everybody that we're going to convene our special meeting after this workshop. And in order to do that, everybody's going to have to get to the point. Just a few things to remind everybody. If we need to evacuate, our assembly area is at the parking lot on the corner of North First and River Oaks by Starbucks. The nearest AED device is in the main lobby by the security guard, and restrooms are outside the double doors. And to members of our public, I want to say thank you for joining us. And I'll make sure that when we're ready to receive public comment, I alert you to that. So I'd like to note that Councilmember Cohen is joining us remotely under just cause provisions of the Brown Act. And as such, we need to maintain our quorum here in this room so that he can participate. And Councilmember Cohen will need to make an announcement relating his remote participation.
Yes, pursuant to Government Code, Section 54953 F2A2, I am participating remotely due to emergency circumstance, due to family emergency. As such, I am requesting the committee grant my request to attend the meeting remotely. And pursuant to Government Code Section 54953, I have Gail Cohen, my adult parent, in the room with me. Otherwise, no other people are here with me at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, David. I'm going to now ask for roll call.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ex officio Abicoga, absent. Blankley, absent. Member Burt.
Here.
Thank you. Member Davis.
She's in the back.
Thank you. Member Dean. Member Foley.
Here.
Alternate Member Jane.
Here.
Member Kamei. Member Lee. Alternate Member Lee Ing.
Here.
Member Mahan. Here. Member Montano. Here. Alternate Member Rennie. Alternate Member Turner. Vice Chairperson Lopez. Chairperson Chavez.
Here.
And Member Cohen.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Thank you so much. So we're going to get started with agenda item 2.1, and this is to receive an update on the Federal Transit Administration full funding grant agreement timeline for VTA's BART Silicon Valley Phase 2 extension project. Tom McGuire, our Chief of Capital Mega Projects Delivery Officer, I do think you got the best title for the organization, is going to get us started. And what I'm going to ask is, the presentation's about 10 minutes, so I'm going to ask if folks can hold their questions. As soon as the presentation's done, I'm going to go to public comment, then I'm going to come back to our group for discussion and feedback and questions. So, Tom?
Okay, good morning, directors. And not too much to continue the vibe from last night, but I guess I just want to say on behalf, outgoing Chair Chavez of the BART team, it's been a real pleasure to see your strength and advocacy for the project, and it's frankly helped us achieve some of the milestones that we're going to talk about today. So just want to express that gratitude from the staff. So today we're going to talk about the continued and perhaps more challenging than previously thought path to the full funding grant agreement with the Federal Transit Administration. I'm going to very quickly give you an update on what we're doing right now, but I'm going to spend most of this presentation trying to share with you how all the different actions that the board and staff are taking with respect to interface with the Federal Transit Administration, contract actions, the actual critical path of construction, and our interaction with the community working groups is all coming together to try to give you a sense of how this is all driving towards the integrated goal of achieving that full funding grant agreement. Right now, what we're doing with the FTA is what you see on the screen. We're working very closely with our project management oversight committee and regional and headquarter staff. That has not changed, and that won't change as a result of the election. 99% of the FTA staff is permanent career. We'll continue to work with them. We'll continue. We went in September and met with our congressional delegation to give them updates on where the project's at and what our efforts to save money mean in context. And we've been meeting with senior staff at headquarters and from FTA Region 9 to discuss the timeline. So they're well aware of the material we're going to share with you today, and they understand what we're trying to do. This is going to be a dynamic presentation, so I'm going to bring each of the major activities streams for the project on the screen one at a time and explain them. And then I've got Bernice, our Director of External Affairs, and Monica, my Deputy Chief and the Program Director, to help me answer any questions we have. So first off, we have our design and our construction. So this project it's broken into 4 packages. CPs 1, 2, 3, and 4. You've heard us use those abbreviations before. They are between 60 to 85% designed right now. However, we know that after August 1st, we learned we were only going to get a $5.1 billion contribution from the FTA, that we needed to cut the cost of the project. And so Monica has been leading an effort within the program to find those cost savings. We've been talking about it at previous board meetings. They are progressing along as well, but they are certainly not as well designed or as far enough along in their design maturity as the work the tunnel and stations we've been designing since 2022. They are right now at about 15%. Our goal is that by April of next year, we'll have those at 60%. And that is that's a level of design where we can have reliable, lower risk, and accurate cost estimates that will ultimately feed into an FFGA application. The second line talks about the construction activities, and I've just boiled these down to just the most important ones. The early works, including the package that, thank you for your approval of early works package 3B last night. The site over at Santa Clara continues to be humming with construction activity, so that work's underway. It is our desire to bring to you in December a negotiated agreement with QHA Trailer, our tunneling contractor, for to build the launch structure, which is the critical path thing to keep this program on schedule, and for that work to get underway this winter. All of the construction activities pointed towards being able to mobilize a tunneling contractor, whether it's QHA Trailer or somebody else, mobilizing that contractor in early 2026 so that the heavy tunneling construction can happen at the end of that year. Meanwhile, we've been engaging our communities. Bernice has been revitalizing and rescoping our community working groups. I think we've had a lot of really great interaction with community members around the general progress of the project, but especially around cost savings and design. It's helped us set some important parameters that have been echoed by this board. We're carrying out the referral that you made to us, where you asked us to first vet ideas with community working groups before they come to this board. So that's been our MO throughout the fall. Those interactions with community working groups and also with the Auditor General's consultant, Gal Ziedler, those continue into next spring. There's a lot of information coming in from those that has been helpful in helping us finalize the cost savings designs and getting our design ready for an application. And then once the application's put together in the spring of next year, the commitment doesn't end. We'll continue to interact with folks as we get into the construction phase. Then there are the decisions that you're making as a board. Last night we had, like I said, number 1 happened last night. Thank you for the vote. Number 2 is the action item on the special session that we'll have later this morning, simply affirming what I think we've heard from each of you at previous board meetings and workshops, that the cost savings concepts should focus on the 5 areas mentioned in that memo. Again, hoping to bring you a decision next month about the early works package, the launch structure. And then the next one's a very important one. We're going to need to start making a decision about who is going to build this tunnel in the spring of 2025. And I very much took to heart the comments many of you made last night about holding contractors accountable, thinking about a contract structure that aligns the contractor's incentive better with VTA's incentive as stewards of public funds. That's a discussion, and the task force that was requested, we're already planning how that'll come together. That task force is going to need to come with a strong recommendation to this board in February or March of next year, so we can make a timely decision about who is building CP2. And that'll also help us have a revised project budget that can feed into into an FFGA application. So right now, the work with the FTA on that bottom line is continued agreement that we're going in the right direction with cost savings, making sure that we're not going outside those guardrails, particularly our NEPA record of decision. That's the work right now that we're doing with the permanent staff. We want to be ready to submit the FFGA application in April of 2025, and then you'll see a series of following tasks after that. Once we submit the application, we go through a risk refresher assessment with the FTA. Once we've gone through that risk assessment with the FTA, we will submit the final application, and then typically it's a 5 to 6 month turnaround. So that is the textbook schedule. I'm not going to comment on whether the election makes that harder or easier, but I think the advice we've consistently gotten from our consultants who understand how FTA headquarters works is we need to do everything we can within the agency to keep our cost and risk under control, go into that process as strongly as possible, and give the FTA, no matter who's in charge, no reason not to grant us an FFGA. The next thing I want to show is how these things depend upon one another. So we've talked about advancing the cost savings concept. We've talked about getting the launch structure under construction. We've talked about some of the board decisions that started last night but continue through April. All of those are in service of making sure we're ready to submit an application in April of 2025. So if any of those things doesn't happen on schedule, we're not going to be able to submit the readiness documentation. That's the first part of the application next April. So the first path is just how do we stay on track to make sure we're able to apply on time. The other path is how do we make sure that we're ready to have our tunneling contractor mobilized on time. And that path runs through first the approval of the launch structure, the commencement of that construction of the launch structure, and the achievement of the FFGA. So one of the important things that I want to say out loud, perhaps this is an assumption that hasn't been stated enough, but it's always been staff's assumption that we would not proceed with the tunneling contractor, which whoever does it will be a multi-billion-dollar commitment. We wouldn't do that until we've received the full funding grant agreement from the FTA, and that we know we have the ability to access those $5 billion to supplement our sales tax dollars. So in that sense, the technical, the decision-making, and the early construction activities paired with the FFGA enable the board to make a decision about authorizing the tunnel contract and ultimately mobilize that tunnel contractor in 2026. So that's been a lot of process, but I wanted to give you a sense that of where the decisions that on that fourth line, the decisions that we bring to you each month are happening in that context, why the FFGA remains so important to keeping the project on schedule, and why some of the early decisions about moving forward with construction are happening, even as we are working very hard to get those costs under control and have a strong application. So that concludes my presentation, and look forward to your questions.
Thank you so much. I'm going to first see if there's public comment, and then I'm going to come back to the board.
There are no requests in person on this item, and there is one on Zoom. Blair, you may begin speaking when ready.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Thanks for this item. Happy Friday morning to everyone. I had a question. If this is not relevant to this item, please stop me. We talked last night at the Board of Supervisors meeting, or I mean, at the VTA meeting, that there was talk last night about future contracts of $35 million, and that a task force is being created to work on issues. If I can speak on that at this time, I'm concerned that for all the work that you need to do with a KST or KSP, a consultant, a construction group, engineering group, or part of the process that's in question at this time, I think what wasn't brought up was the importance of the two-track system being converted to 2 tunnels in the future. We need to be more open and clear about that if that's going to be a question of this task force. Good luck how to do that, to be clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Blair. That concludes public comment.
Okay, thank you. And I will remind my colleagues that we're going to have a deeper discussion on other issues relative to this project, especially around cost savings. So I want to, if we can, keep questions focused on the presentation that's in front of us. So I'm going to start here and just go along the line here. Dev?
Thanks. Good morning. Thanks, Tom, for this. This is really helpful, and I have much more clarity about timeline and activities than I did 10 minutes ago. The question I have is about April of 2025. It looks like a lot needs to happen in April 2025, so I'm concerned that the critical path has no give in it for cost savings concept designs in April, and then submitting the readiness documents. So that looks to me like you're coming to the board, you're expecting the board to sign off and not send you back. And so it doesn't look like there's any time for a back and forth discussion because there's no give in the schedule. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, actually, maybe Monica could talk about why we're talking about pushing that cost savings to April and why 60% is important.
Sure. So the idea with the cost savings that we've started now, that we've shown up there at about a 15% design level, we'd like to advance it further to the 60% design level, so we have that level of confidence when we put together the cost estimate that will then go into the readiness documents. So the higher level of design that we have.
Maybe we should give you a new mic.
Just swap it out.
Just say,
Yeah, thanks.
Let's see if this will work. Okay, there we go. So the higher level of design that we use to develop the cost estimate, the stronger, the more robust cost estimate there will be. So when we submit it to FTA, the less contingency and questions about that cost estimate into our readiness documents. So we need that time there to advance the design further.
and so that's the technical explanation. And then on that third line, we talk about community and stakeholder engagement. I think maybe the way to respond to the second part of your question is we should put some board engagement in there as well, so you can have some feedback, so we don't go
you.
dark until April.
Yes, I agree, and I just, it gives me a little bit of heartburn. I know I won't be on this board, but to think that, what if that 60% design, we still come up short? Then what happens
Yeah.
to the timeline?
Yes.
Because it looks like the timeline gets shot to heck, for lack of a better term.
Gotcha. Yeah. So right now with the 15% designs that we've been bringing up here, we're putting together cost estimates during this month. So we're going to know sooner than that if we're short of the cost savings. That's what you're asking about, right? If we're short. So we're going to know during this month as we're developing the cost estimates to go with the design that we currently have, the 15% level of design. If we need to continue to do this cost-saving exercise, we're going to know this month.
Okay, and you're coming back to the BSV 2 Oversight Committee as well as the board, either every month for the Oversight Committee to give us an update on the progress
As they
in this?
progress.
Yeah, every month, yes, at the
Okay.
BSV, yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Pat?
Yes, Monica, I wanted to follow up on that last sequencing that you described, that we would know within the next month whether we have the cost savings we need. My understanding is we would, at that point in time, have known whether we've identified prospective savings, but not have determined whether each of those are ones that are really feasible. So I wanted to make sure I understand that distinction, because throughout our previous discussions, it was as, I thought it was described as I just said, that we right now have not, what you have shared with the committee is not enough even potential savings to meet our goal. What we would have in the coming weeks is those identified and presumably ones that, a further refinement on which ones you think are most likely, but that's not the same thing as selecting them, is it?
Maybe it's more of a, let me try to frame the process a little more. So this has all been an exercise in trying to narrow a long list of ideas that were everywhere from sort of wild brainstorms to, you know, ideas that we discarded in the past and need to do some more refinement to price. We're coming, as you can see, the movement from 15 to 60%, which on the schedule does show taking about 6 months to do that kind of design. Every time we advance the design, we know a little bit more. We have to be able to check in periodically during that narrowing. Are we on the right track? Do we is there enough on the table, or do we need to put some more things on the table? And that we will know whether we need to put some more things on the table in December. That doesn't mean we don't continue to pursue the cost-saving concepts we have and try to drive towards a very precise cost estimate for them. And I think, again, I draw attention to that third line. We have been having some really fruitful interactions with Gall Ziedler, the Auditor General's consultant, bringing some more ideas. And I think if we feel in December like we need to get more ideas on the table, we've now got a reserve of ideas coming from that work stream as well.
But putting them on the table and determining that they are necessarily what we're going to pursue are not one and the same. And that's the important distinction I want to make sure we're making. And actually, it's not a binary choice. We, as you're at 15% design, if you put enough things forward within that kind of bucket, and not all of the potential cost savings are at 15% at this point in time. What we've heard from the PMOC is that, as I think you alluded to, if we were to submit these cost savings to them at 30% design, they would have to build back in additional risk contingencies. And so why is that the case? It's because they would be saying, we still don't have certainties.
Right.
So I think it's really important for us to be clear on what it is that we'll have determined in a month, and then what will be occurring between then and April, and then what happens in April. So I really want to encourage you to have greater clarity on that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to keep going. Do I have anybody else? Mayor? You had a quizzical look, so I'm just going to go with the.
We can hear you.
Oh, it's the green light. Sorry, in the other room, it's the red light. Okay, got it. Need more coffee.
It's true.
So I guess just picking up on where Pat was, I also wanted to ask for greater clarity around our expectation for where we will be in December. Obviously, there's some uncertainty, but where are you hoping to be, and what's Plan B?
Well, so
We talked about it a little bit last night.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
reiterate.
yeah, so this question of when do we know we're at a place of viability, I think that question is known for sure in April, but in December, we bring the BSV2 committee a table every month that shows the high level, the major cost areas that Monica and the team are looking at, and there's generally a pretty wide range of numbers, like 100 to 300 million for the rail yard, or just straight TBD.
Yeah.
So in December, we'll have there'll be more meat on the bone on that table. And, previously, I think some of you have looked at the table and said, well, this only adds up to 500 million. And I've said, well, wait for the TBDs to come in, wait for the ranges to narrow before we know. I think we'll have tighter ranges and fewer TBDs in December.
Okay, and just to be more specific, my sense is we will not find sufficient savings. We could, but unlikely just out of the launch structure. I mean, obviously, we've also
Correct.
parking garages and other things. But we also, obviously, some of it needs to come out of the tunneling.
Some of it has to come out of the tunnel.
And the question I have is, will we have greater clarity on both or just the launch structure? Because I know we're intensively negotiating and figuring out the launch structure. Will we kind of know for both what we think the savings are?
I think we'll have dollar figures for the tunneling for the first time, what the TBDs
Together.
are
Okay.
today, and then narrower ranges for some of the others.
Okay. And then, given that we want to have a menu of options, and we may need to go rebid the remainder of the launch structure, is there anything we need to be doing now to ensure that we can do that as efficiently as possible?
I think, I mean, kind of getting into maybe a later item, but I
Okay.
think writing the contract for the launch structure with the correct incentives and alignments, I think is the best way to answer that question.
Okay. And we'll come to that in a future topic.
Yeah, and Matt,
okay.
I think if I could just make a point, which is that I think what you're hearing is a request for much more detail so that this is something that is more, a more shared set of approaches. And I know that'll get refined more and more, but I think this really speaks to a product that I think this is the beginning of, but may just not have the detail that allows the board to understand the implications of each step, not just the board, but the public as well. But I think thank you, Matt, for raising that again. Any other comments, Suds?
Yeah, thank you for this. The thing that I really have little clarity on is the NEPA guardrails. Because, is starting a twin bore from the east side within the NEPA guardrails? Is reducing the size of the maintenance yard within the NEPA guardrails? If those are within the NEPA, what about twin bore for the whole thing? I just don't have any clarity on what the NEPA guardrails are.
On the bottom line of the slide there, we've got that first item, FTA agreement on cost savings within NEPA guardrails. We've had some good interactions with FTA and our PMOC already. They are offering to schedule an in-person workshop with us, hopefully after today's action, to go through the items that are on today's action in more detail and give us some more of that clarity. Our staff does believe that the items that we've been reviewing with the BSV2 committee do not require a supplemental EIR, but we'd like to get more clarity from the FTA about that.
Okay, and my second question is, if we were to off-ramp KST, my issue with KST is they were essentially the only bidder. And they basically, can write their own ticket for the cost, and they have been unwilling to come down. And so are we actively looking at splitting up? Because I think if we were to rebid this out as one package as a whole, we're going to probably only get the same type of bids. So what is the impact of splitting this out into different contractors that we'd get more competitive bids? And how much would that extend this timeline? Because it takes a while to go out and do bids and qualify them and, get them on board.
That's a good observation. The reason we had this decision on CP2 Stage 2 in February, March of next year is we feel like that's the latest we could make a decision about a repackaged contract. Repackaging the CP2 contract either as is or to get more bidders or into the multiple contract packages. That is the work of the task force that was requested last night. So the task force will come back with answers about that in early 2025 so we can execute on them. And we'll have to take into account the construction market, incentives, and things like that.
Right, it's the timeline that concerns me.
And yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're trying to make that decision in a way that we always have to worry about time, but make that decision soon enough so that we don't put the overall schedule at too much risk. I guess that's the best way I can explain it.
Yeah, because my take on it is we don't have a project if we can't find the money, if we can't get the cost savings. We just can't apply to the FTA if we can't show that we have the money. And so if we can't shave it off of these contracts, we don't have the money. Thank you.
Any other comments? So what I'm just gonna suggest, first of all, thank you for the report. I know we took public comment on this item already, but I know we have a maid of honor here who wants to speak. So I'm just going to do a little point of personal privilege, maid of honor. Do you want to speak on, Gabby, and we'll let you do it now instead of waiting for the next item. So thank you, colleagues. We're all for love, so that's why we're doing it this way.
So am I, especially today. That's why I'm here, so.
I don't think that mic is on. Can we make sure it is? Oh, great.
Perfect. My voice just carries. Okay, so good morning, esteemed members of the board. I'm here today both as the CEO of the Latina Coalition of Silicon Valley and as a board member of the Downtown Association, here in support of single board tunnel option for the BART downtown extension. From an equity perspective, I think the single board tunnel has distinct advantages. It reduces surface disruption, which is critical for local businesses, especially in communities that have already experienced significant disruption from COVID and past infrastructure projects. Minimizing construction impacts can help ensure that our most vulnerable residents and businesses, particularly in low income and immigrant communities, aren't further burdened by long-term closures for construction chaos. While there are valid concerns about station design and operational costs, the single bore option presents an opportunity to balance these against substantial long-term savings in capital expenses and time. The savings could be reinvested in expanding transit access to other underserved communities in our region, and we must be mindful of the financial and social risks, but I believe that the long-term benefits of the single bore method, from reduced construction impacts to the potential for a more efficient and cost-effective project, align with our values of promoting equitable development, ensuring public safety, and advancing a sustainable future for all of our residents. Our nonprofit is located in downtown as well, and I know that there will be extreme impacts to a lot of the businesses and community-based organizations that are downtown. So thank you so much for your time and consideration today, and best of luck.
Thank you. All right, so with that item closed, then we're going to just go to our next meeting. I still don't understand our process. You'd think I would after 100 years of going from one meeting to another, but there you go. So we're now going to adjourn this meeting, and we're going to go into our special meeting, which means that we do another roll call. So all of you stay seated. So we'll begin this meeting, and I know that Member Cohen is participating remotely, and I'm going to ask for a roll call, and then we'll come to you, David, for your disclosure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Member Blankley? Member Burt?
Here.
Member Davis?
Here.
Member Dean? Member Foley? Here. Thank you. Alternate Member Jane?
Here.
Member Kamei? Here. Member Lee? Absent. Alternate Member Lee Ing?
Here.
Member Mahan? Here. Member Montano? Here. Alternate Member Rennie? Alternate Member Turner? Vice Chairperson Lopez?
Here.
Chairperson Chavez?
Here.
Member Cohen?
Here.
Thank you.
And pursuant to Government Code 54953 F2A1, I am participating remotely due to family emergency. And I have one additional person in the room, Gail Cohen, a parent at this moment.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to just go right into 2.1, and this is an action item to authorize the general manager to advance major cost-saving concepts for SV Phase 2 extension and our project through the FTA administrative process and the full funding grant agreement process. So, Tom.
Okay, thank you again. Oops. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Sorry, I'm sorry. Okay, so I am going to cover ground that most of you who have been on the BSV2 committee have heard several times, and so I'm going to try to move through this as quickly as possible and focus on the action that we're requesting from you. So, as we talked about in the last item, we want to get major cost-saving ideas. Even as we continue to develop their costs, we want to get the concepts in front of our project management oversight consultant and the FTA as soon as possible to have a robust conversation about the NEPA guardrails, the issues that Director Jane was asking about. And so what we're asking for today is board action to authorize or recommend that the CEO and staff move the 5 items you see in color on the bottom of the screen forward into that discussion. We're not asking for a commitment to a budget. We're not asking for any commitment of funding today. We're asking for your endorsement of these ideas because we've developed them through with communities in the BSV2 committee and board so that we can have the confidence to have that conversation with our federal partners. So with that, I will give a very quick overview of where each of these items is right now. I'm going to start with the tunnel interior reconfiguration. This is simply coming up with a more efficient way of organizing the concrete and steel within the tunnel. This would have no impact on passenger experience at all, should have a decreased impact on overall contract cost and importantly schedule risk because the reduction in material quantities, and should have a positive impact on our sustainability because of the reduction in concrete. Secondly is the idea of concurrently tunneling from the east. So this is as our large bore continues to work from west to east from Santa Clara towards Little Portugal. The idea of concurrent tunneling from the east is that we would simultaneously build a small tunnel, a small twin bore tunnel, not underneath streets, not in a way that would have any kind of disruption to infrastructure downtown, but strictly in the areas underneath the 101 freeway, underneath the industrial sites VTA already owns in the Little Portugal vicinity, to reduce the overall schedule of tunneling, the scheduled duration of tunneling. The Newhall Yard configuration, this is the idea of reducing the number of tracks, services, and complexity of the BART yard, which is a significant part of the project. It's close to $1 billion in our project budget. It's important to have a yard. We need to store vehicles. We need to clean vehicles. We need to have light repair vehicles. But we're working closely with BART to find ways to reduce the overall cost and scope of that yard. Again, this, as long as we have enough storage and cleaning capacity to maintain frequency of service, this will not have an impact on the passenger experience. And then we come to the station areas, and this is an area where we definitely heard directly from this board in September and from the BSV2 committee consistently, and most importantly from our community working groups, that there is some flexibility to modify station designs, particularly in the area of parking, but there's no desire to see the iconic nature of the stations or the passenger experience compromised as part of the station design. So those are the guardrails we tried to work within here, and I'm going to give a quick overview of what that looks like. All of these designs have been shown to and have gotten a positive reception from our community working groups and, where applicable, our design review committees. At Santa Clara, is a very small change to the design, a slight change to the footprint and the size of the roof at Santa Clara, using some more structural efficiency as a result of that, and some material changes within the garage. And that's an image of what the Santa Clara station would look like from Brokaw Road. And there's a closer look at what the station head house would look like. Next, at the Diridon station, again, this is a focus on maintaining the iconic and prominent roof line, which is something that our community working group, our city partners have been very adamant about. Some optimization of the station facilities and material efficiency. So again, this is a tweak, not a radical change to the Diridon design. And that's a closer up look at what it would look like from the corner of Santa Clara and Cahill. The downtown station, this is one where we've had a really robust conversation with the community working group about moving to a more structurally efficient but still iconic design. That arch, the proscenium arch vision you see there. This was well received by by the CWGs, and it maintains at the community's strong interest. It maintains the front door on Santa Clara Street. So we're not talking about doing an alley between Santa Clara Street and the TOD. We have a iconic station fronting on Santa Clara Street, but there are some cost savings here as well. Here's what it would look like on the inside, our busiest station. And then finally, the Little Portugal station, the focus here is really around the parking. So as we've had some serious, meaningful, and ultimately very fruitful conversations with the Little Portugal community about where the station goes and how it interacts with Plaza, we've also clarified where the transit-oriented development can go. And as a result of that, we think that there's an opportunity to provide parking largely on the surface on day one, and to be prepared to replace that with parking garages, either standalone parking garages or parking garages integrated into the transit-oriented development. Sorry, there's the station. Again, more effective materials there, but integrate the parking into the broader transit-oriented development in the area, while maintaining our commitment to the community. And then I'll close the reminder of the goal we're working towards here is closing the funding gap. I think you all know $700 million, and hopefully beyond to protect the Measure A, the $500 million of Measure A we show in this pie chart. So our goal is to reach cost savings that fill all the gaps in that pie chart. The concepts today don't by themselves get there. I don't want to pretend that we have all the answers on the table today, but advancing these conversations and getting clarity that the ideas we have now are within NEPA is a very important down payment on making sure we're in a position to have this closed by April. And then, again, just want to reiterate our commitment to community working groups and continued interaction with the BSV committee, but I think after the previous discussion, also the board as well. And that concludes my presentation, and I'll put the action on the screen and look forward to your questions.
Excellent. I'm going to go to the public first, and I'm going to invite up David Heindel, Dan Pham, Alex. And Alex, I know you've been in our community a while, and I still can't say your last name, so I super apologize, except I know Alex, Downtown Association. I'll do that. Thank you. Ted.
Stozinski.
Thank you. Ted McMahon and Jennifer Maluda and Pim Gill. Welcome.
Ready, go.
On
That's what my kids say to me. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name's David Heindel. I own a downtown small business directly across from the new station. It's called HotWorks. It's an infrared therapy and fitness business. I invite you all to come and try it sometime. Our family made a huge, major personal investment downtown 6 years ago. We were closed for 2 years by the lockdown. We survived that. We're still trying to recover from that. I'm not quite sure I understand the gentleman's comments, but I was told that there was a cost saving on top of what's on the list here to consider going to a double bore, which I'm told will have a huge effect on Santa Clara Street. I'm familiar with how BART was built on Market Street in San Francisco and destroyed that area. I believe that if we do even consider a double bore, that it will completely destroy Santa Clara Street, my business, and my investment. And on top of that, from what I've been told, it would delay the project, and the cost savings associated with going to the double bore would probably eat up all of the savings anyway. So I suggest, recommend, hope that you will stick with your current cost list of cost savings, and there's no need to even study going to a double bore. Thank you.
Yeah, come on up if I called your name, and Adolfo, I saw you too, so whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good morning, board members. Thank you for letting me speak today. My name is Dan Pham. I own and operate 4 businesses here in downtown San Jose. We employ over 150 people. I've dedicated my career to help building a thriving, vibrant downtown, investing not just in business, but in the community's future as well. Investments in downtown are creating the backbone of a new era, from expansive campuses, high-rise living spaces, to local establishments like mine. For the first time, I think new residents and transplants are choosing downtown for their home, drawn by its walkability and the vibrant lifestyle down there. The single board construction method is key to safeguarding the incredible momentum downtown gained over the last 15 years. While single bore may initially seem more costly, the long-term economic and social cost of twin bore and cap and cover methods, such as restricted business access, years of disrupted traffic, and greater infrastructure wear, they far outweigh any type of savings initially. This isn't just a matter about saving money, it's about preserving an emerging downtown community that we've worked hard to cultivate. Single bore is an investment in a future-focused downtown San Jose, preserving our urban growth and enhancing not just downtown, but the entire region's appeal for generations to come. So thank you for considering this decision, one that can make or break the progress we've all worked hard to achieve. Thank you, guys.
Good morning, VTA Board of Directors. My name is Alex Satinsky. I'm the CEO of the San Jose Downtown Association, which represents 2,000 businesses and property owners in downtown. As we work to develop effective, sustainable transportation options in Santa Clara County, I want to emphasize the critical value of single-bore tunneling for a BART's Phase 2 extension through downtown San Jose. This method not only protects San Jose's vibrant downtown by minimizing disruptive road closures, but also benefits the broader Santa Clara County economy by preserving the local businesses and cultural destinations that draw residents and visitors alike. The single-bore tunnel through downtown must be preserved as VTA explores options to cut costs and speed development. The single-bore design was selected years ago and represents a practical, cost-effective option for meeting both VTA and BART requirements. And staying with this design preserves our downtown and reduces the overall risk and cost associated with larger alternative tunnel designs that will delay construction for years and add significantly to the cost of the project. Thank you so much.
Good morning. My name is Tim Gill. I'm an attorney. I've been a downtown business owner since 1997. I've been at my business is the law office of Timothy Gill. I've owned the building since 1999. We have 3 ground level tenants: City Bagels, Fuji Sushi Restaurant, Hot Works. COVID was devastating for their businesses, and they just started coming out of that desperate economic times. I advocate for the plan that is least disruptive for small businesses. They are the economic backbone of downtown San Jose. For decades, the city has been trying to revitalize downtown. And if you make a decision for nominal savings for a short-term benefit, the long-term ramifications will be less visitors, more blight, less residents wanting to come down, less business wanting to come downtown. So I advocate for the single bore. Thank you.
Jen, and then Ted, and then Adolfo.
Thank you. I'm Jennifer Maluta with San Jose State. Good morning, board and staff. Thank you for having me. San Jose State is 34,000 Spartan community strong with faculty, staff, and students. We occupy 19 city blocks or 150 acres in the heart of downtown, and we're the 4th ranked public university in the nation. We are in favor of single bore because we want to minimize the economic impact it'll have on the downtown and minimize the disruption it'll have for the community around the downtown of San Jose. We think if we pursue double bore, it will impact San Jose State in a number of ways, focused on enrollment and enrollment retention. You may start at San Jose State, but you will not stay at San Jose State. Our faculty, staff, we are in the same position as many public entities. It's hard to retain and it's hard to attract and it's hard to retain staff. Researchers want to be in a community where they feel supported, where they can do research, where they can go walk around afterwards with their research team and with their students. With double bore and the disruption it'll have in the downtown, that's not going to be feasible. Our campus community, like many campus communities, is like water. They will find a way, but we are very concerned they will find a way to do it elsewhere, not in the downtown. Thank you very much.
Did Ted leave? Oh, okay. Oh, they both did? All right. Thank you. All right. I'm going to now, is there anybody online who would like to speak?
Yes, we have 3 requests to speak.
Thank you.
Blair, followed by Jordan and Maya. Blair, you may begin speaking when ready.
Hi, thank you, Blair Beekman. Oh my gosh, it is so nice to hear people asking the question, what are you guys doing with single bore versus double bore issues? You couldn't talk about this last night. I'm really hurt that you couldn't. I'm for the future of the tunneling system to be close to the St. James Park and St. James or St. John Avenue. But if that's not a fact, what is the question of single and double boring? there's questions about public safety that we're not talking about that has to be more clear in these money-making decisions or cost-saving decisions. You guys switched to a double track system within one bore to respect safety, and now you're considering a double tunnel system, a double bore system out of public safety respect. Why aren't you talking about the concepts of public safety for these things and making that the point of conversation, and that we start from there and then have our conversation? Please be open, guys. Thank you. You're doing a good job.
Thank you, Blair. Our next speaker will be Jordan. Please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready.
Hi, Jordan Moldow from the city of San Jose, and I wanted to talk about the Little Portugal design. It had equal signs for placemaking, station presence, and passenger experience, but I feel like surrounding the station with nothing but surface parking lots is really a huge minus for placemaking, station presence, and passenger experience. So I hope that VTA will be absolutely committed to replacing those surface parking lots at the earliest possible moment, and maybe even not building some of them at all. We don't need 1,000 parking stalls around that station. We have a huge amount of parking at Berryessa and Milpitas that goes very underutilized. Just surrounding your station with parking is not going to make it a desirable place to want to live, to want to visit. It's just not going to be a very lively station. So please do what you can to minimize the amount of surface and garage parking that's going to go into the Little Portugal station. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. And our final speaker will be Maya. Please accept the unmute and begin speaking when ready.
Thank you, Chair Chavez and members of the board. I'm Maya Harris, Director of Special Projects at J. Paul Company. I'm sorry I could not be there in person today, but I'd like to reiterate the comments I made at the Oversight Committee last week. J. Paul is one of the largest property owners in downtown San Jose, and we made a big bet on its success. We are developing next-generation high-density office, housing, and retail projects in downtown that will reshape the city. We are very concerned about the possibility of a prolonged, highly disruptive construction project on the surface streets of one of downtown's main arteries. VTA and the City of San Jose have chosen single-bore technology for the BART extension through downtown, a decision essential for minimizing disruption to downtown's economy and communities. We must prioritize this modern approach to preserve downtown's vibrancy and economic future. Supporting single-bore is not only about efficiency in transit, it's about safeguarding the heart of our city. Thank you.
Thank you. That completes public comment.
Thank you so much. And I do want to just say how much I appreciate all of the public speakers who've come today and who came last time. And I want you to all to understand that there's a lot of concern about and protection of downtown, and that's partly why, frankly, why we're having these meetings that we're having. So thank you for continuing to raise your voice. I'm going to go to my colleagues and see if there are any comments or questions on this item. I'm going to go to Pam and then to Suds.
Thank you for the presentation, and I appreciate the comments from the members of the community who have businesses in downtown San Jose and the impact of twin bore versus single bore. I share your concerns there. I'm looking at this list, and the list I think is an appropriate list for us to be starting and looking at reducing costs, particularly the areas that are not going to affect the passenger experience. And that's the tunnel interior reconfiguration, the concurrent tunneling from east and west, and the new haul yard. All of those make sense. I'm curious about, and I know, Tom, you said we don't have the numbers yet, but do you have an estimate of what kind of cost savings those three things might generate?
I don't want to commit to a number. I can tell you it's less than 700 million, though.
Okay, so then the fourth, thank you. I'm less concerned about those three, and I'm hoping we can find a lot of cost savings in those three things. The fourth one that is of interest to me is the conversion of the parking in Little Portugal. We truly don't need that many parking spaces, and to build a parking structure right now seems not the best use of our funds if we're looking for cost savings. We still have space for vehicles to park there. So using that to cost saves makes sense. Refining the station design, however, concerns me greatly. I look at, and I'm not in Santa Clara, so it's hard for me to focus on the experience in Santa Clara, so maybe one of my colleagues who lives in Santa Clara can comment on that. But when I look at the Diridon design, and I look at even the Little Portugal design and the downtown design, they're uninspiring to me. So I think if we want to drive people to transit, the experience of the passenger is not just about going through the station and getting on BART. It's about what is surrounding there, what services are available, what restaurants and businesses are there that they can benefit from as they're walking through. I think last time we had this meeting, I talked about my experience in Okayama, Japan, and how their train station is right next to a lot of businesses. It's very much more dense in Japan, so everything's built very high. But you walk into the Okayama station, and there's thousands of people milling around, going to restaurants, getting their hair cut, getting foot massages. Everything that they could have done was there, right there at the station. I think we should think bigger and bolder on that. I understand if we think bigger and bolder, it may cost more money on that side. But in the long run, I think it will benefit us as it will benefit the passenger experience, because people will want to start riding transit to go into the cool transit station that we're going to have opening. So I really want us to think bigger and bolder on our stations. The other four things, I really believe we can find some cost savings, and I know you're working on that. Maybe offset by increased costs in a fabulous station design, but maybe we can get sponsorship for some of the businesses who might want to have signage or something. Again, we just need to be creative and make sure that we're thinking about the user when we're redesigning our stations. Thank you.
Suds, and then Lynette.
Yeah, the station designs, if you look at these slides, the Santa Clara station looks to be the most iconic, and I'll tell you why, because I got very involved with that. We started a design review committee very early on. We got community members involved with it. We insisted on getting rid of the above-grade concourse, and we went to a at-grade concourse that saved us $75 million estimated. And the reason why, I mean, if I look at the downtown station, it looks like an airport hangar. I mean, I'm talking to my colleagues here. Yeah. If I look at the Diridon on slide 9, it looks like a fire station from the side. These are really, really underwhelming, just absolutely. And when I went to the joint committee of the CWGs, universally people said, we don't want you to nickel and dime us. We don't want you to shave $5 million just to get some blocky design. We want to have something where people want to meet their friends. If you have to wait for the train, it should be a nice place to be sitting there waiting for the train. So I think we need to really, really tell our design consultants what we want and have them go back and start from a blank piece of paper and start over, because I'm very under-inspired by those designs. And so then the thing about the interior configuration of the tunnels, I love the idea of saving concrete, and I know that years ago, people rejected the stacked platforms, but I don't see why we couldn't revisit stacked platforms. It would give us bigger platforms and a smaller tunnel diameter. I know that I heard rumors that it was BART that put their feet down, but, you know, we're renegotiating with BART on a lot of design considerations, like the size of the maintenance yard and other things. So I don't see why that would be off the table.
Thank you. Lynette?
Thank you for the report, and I would like to thank everyone for making this workshop happen. It was important that we came back to really get a visual of how things were going to look, and I think we're still a little disappointed by learning more about these designs. I hope there is still time and opportunity to refine some of these designs, but without the cost, without the numbers, we really don't understand the cost savings we're going to experience from these designs and how to provide further directions. And so that's a little troubling to me. The other thing is we talking about the passenger experience, and we hope we don't have to compromise on some of the needed infrastructure because we wanted to improve opportunities for businesses in these stations as well. And having these needed infrastructure to have kiosks in these facilities is important. So we want to make it convenient and pleasant for everyone to, you know, travel. And so I hope we can continue to keep that in mind and not compromise in areas such as that. But we really need to understand the costs. And until we have that, you know, we're a little bit lost in whether we're actually receiving cost savings as well as how to better get the designs that we want in areas such as this. Thank you.
Rosemary?
Thank you. And thank you for the presentation. I'm going to follow up on my colleague, Councilmember Foley, on the costs, dollars. And I know that you mentioned that, you know, you couldn't really say exactly what it would be, but I'd like to know, how close does this get us to 700? I mean, are we halfway there, because I know that as you get closer to design, you do get better numbers, right? But, you know, just to, you know, give an idea, are we halfway there? Are we 2/3 of the way there? I mean, you have I think we will all recognize you have a tremendous challenge, right? But if we are only approximately, and we know that it's sort of a, you know, sort of a fuzzy area, if we're only approximately halfway there, then, you know, we don't have a lot of time to figure out the other half. Now, if we are, you know, closer to, oh, well, this could possibly get us to, I don't know, 2/3 of the way there, you know, 3/4 of the way there, or something, right? Because I think that when you showed the timeline and when the decisions need to be made, that's not enough time, right? So I get that, you know, you get better numbers as you get better, you know, closer to a good design and all of that. But I want to know, what is the plan B? Because the time is very short and the number is very big.
I mean, I guess the one direct answer we could give is that, I mean, we're more than halfway there. We're definitely not at 700 million with this. Again, we're working as iteratively as possible. I think the strategy here has been to try to bring work in progress to you as a board, and trying to pivot towards a much more transparent approach to this, as opposed to giving you
No, that's fine.
done deal inside. Yeah.
I think that's perfectly okay, but, you know, knowing that it's more than half, you know, gives me a better sense of, you know, how big the lift is, right? And so if it's a little bit more than half, then I know that I can sort of like gauge my expectations when, you know, these decision points come, right? But I think that, you know, something that Member Jane said in terms of, you know, if we don't have the money, there's not going to be a project. And I think that the contractors, I know that they, you know, want to make their part of the, you know, their, you know, business to be profitable, but at the same time, there will be no project, right? So I think that it's sort of a coming together of all of the different parties, right, to understand that if we don't get to where we need to be by that April decision, then, you know, unfortunately, things may be off, you know, off because we just can't get there, right? We don't want that. I know that, you know, we're committed to completing this project, but at the same time, we also have to be realistic. And I think that it would be helpful to know when you come back to the board or to the committee or the ad hoc committee, whatever, it would be great to see how the progression is going in the direction of, oh, we're 2/3 of the way there. Okay, you know, I think that that's very helpful, at least for me.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you. So first, I want to follow up on Rosemary's question and burrow down into one of the 5 categories that you had, the second one, which is concurrent tunneling from the east. And to be clear, that means that we would be tunneling from both directions at once and from the east with a twin bore, presumably. And then that twin bore tunneling would go either to Little Portugal or possibly an underground transition to single bore somewhere between downtown and Little Portugal, presumably west of the fault line and closer to downtown. That category of, so that cost saving is one level if we went to Little Portugal, potentially another level if we went further, but that underground transition is not something that you have yet gone into really depth in what is feasible in that design, and that's something that you are going to be meeting with GZ on in the coming weeks. So I want to make sure everybody understands those two things. And when we talk about this, the twin bore, we have really 3 different ways in which we're talking about it. One prospectively going to Little Portugal, another going nearly to downtown and having a transition fully below the surface. And then the other one that is creating the real consternation among downtown business people would be whether we would go twin bore further than that. And if I was to bet money, I would say that the more likely cost savings and feasible technology that we would select would be going from 2 directions in one of those versions and not a full twin bore. I just want to be clear that no one is considering or been proposing a twin bore that would allow the surface disruptions that were originally the basis for selecting the single bore. That if there was any consideration, it's based upon different construction methods which may not be feasible. And if they're not feasible, it wouldn't go further. But it would only be considered in the downtown area or the Deardan if alternative construction methods were feasible, either excavation or a much less surface impact. So I just want to make sure we're in agreement on those things. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, there's a couple different things there. So this exercise is not looking at twin bore downtown. This exercise is looking at what what's the most efficient way to combine the benefits of the single bore coming from the west with the efficiencies of a twin bore working
And I
simultaneously.
understand, what you have on the screen is exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, and the question of how far do you go is something we will explore with Gulls Liedler for sure. I think that's a fruitful discussion. But impact to communities is a major parameter in that conversation. So we're not talking in this exercise about doing a twin bore downtown.
That's right. That's separate from this exercise. It's still something that you plan on. You had done a preliminary evaluation of pros and cons of that twin bore. That's still being reviewed and then would be coming to the committee soon. But when that comes forward, it's not, the premise is that it would not be any consideration of a twin bore that would have the surface disruptions that were originally conceived of.
I think those are details we probably would get into when we bring that
Okay.
item to the board, but I just,
right.
for the board's benefit, those issues are not being asked today, and I don't think
Understood.
staff would not take an action today to mean
No, I understand.
explore
that. I
downtown
just wanted to
at
frame
all.
that
Yeah.
because even though that's not what we're talking about today, we had a bunch of speakers who were speaking to that today. Okay, and then the other thing is the action that we are being asked to take. I think that the language in that action is needs greater clarity. So what it says is that we'd be authorizing the advancement of the major cost-saving concepts, these 5, and through the FDA's FFGA process. Well, we're not authorizing today that you go forward with these 5 all the way to the FFGA process. We're authorizing, tell me if this is not correct, we're authorizing you to proceed on additional analysis and design in preparation to submit them to the PMOC with a board approval at some point or points along the way, and that's not clear. And then subsequent to that PMOC approval, then it goes to the actual FFGA process. Is that a correct description? And if so, can you go through and make sure we understand what we're authorizing today and where the board approvals would fall in that timeline?
Okay. I'm going to go to page 3 of the actual board action that is in your packet. I'm just going to read 2 sentences that maybe help answer those 2 questions. First of all, the very last sentence of the first the first paragraph on that page talks about the updated timeline towards an FFGA, which will be presented at the November 8th workshop, which was the previous item we discussed. And that timeline articulates where the VTA board's actions will be required to advance the project towards the FFGA. So I think we're trying to be clear there that that will be where the scope is defined into our application. And then the last paragraph of the next, the last sentence of the next paragraph on that page does talk about how the ideas will be discussed further with the FTA PMOC, progressed based on feedback received from community, stakeholders, and board, regular updates anticipated throughout through 2025. So I think that's where we tried to capture that.
And that was my understanding of your intent. My concern is when we're talking about the summary of the action item, it really doesn't provide those clarifications. And it implies something different from what I understand your intent to be. And the intent is captured, as you say, on page 3 there. So I want to make sure we have an alignment between what we vote on and what we're all understanding as what would be happening.
That respond to your comments? Okay. I'm going to go to David Cohen. He's been waiting patiently. Let's see if he might have stepped away for a minute. Oh, there you go, David.
No, I'm sorry. I just got up for 1 second. I'll be
I'm super sorry. Do you want me to go to someone else?
go someone else and then me next.
Okay, thank you. I'm so sorry. Go ahead, Sergio.
Thank you. I'm supportive of the options that are being discussed here. I just wanted to pick up on something from a public comment more, just to make sure I'm doing my due diligence and asking questions. Could there be any cost savings associated with doing even less surface parking at 28th Street, Little Portugal?
So currently, based on our environmental document, we have a requirement to build 1,250 parking spaces there. Initially, it was going to be 800 in the garage and the remainder surface. We could certainly, right now, the plan is to do initial surface parking, and possibly when TOD goes in, there's a total at all these stations, around 60 million square feet of office, retail, housing around the stations. So we could certainly look at how that could be incorporated, or see, if the environment changes after the project is built, possibly. But the current project right now requires that, so we don't have the flexibility to reduce the number of parking right now.
Okay, so it's kind of moot, even if there would be, I mean, I'm not assuming it would be huge, but any cost savings with that because we're required. I mean, I'll just say, I won't spend too long on this because I want to keep focused to this topic, but I'm interested in flexibility there to adapt long-term so that we don't have an overpark situation indefinitely into the future. Thank you.
All right, any last questions? Suds, and then, Rosemary, did I miss you? I'm so sorry. Oh, okay, go ahead, Suds.
Yeah, so I'm fine with all of these cost savings. If we're going to make a motion, my concern is that somehow we're accepting these station designs, which I'm unwilling to accept. So I want to make sure that we have active DRCs that engage the community, like we did with Santa Clara, that give us better station designs. And they should be welcoming places with space for kiosks, people where you can meet somebody getting off the train for a coffee and have a meeting right there in the station and feel like it's a pleasant experience. So I've been asking for DRCs since I got on the board 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and I just am not clear as to whether they're happening for the other stations. I know they are happening for Santa Clara, but I'm not happy.
You sound cranky, okay. So I hear you. Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, so we have 3 design review committees, and we have the Santa Clara Station Design Review Committee, we have the 28th Street Little Portugal, and then we have a combined downtown Diridon Design Review Committee. So they have been meeting regularly as well, and some of the recent designs, they're more like conceptual, right? They were based on input from those committees. Like, we had gone with initially around station configuration for 28th Street Little Portugal, moved towards the square based on their feedback, put it back to around City of San Jose, the downtown station. That newest configuration really came out of the input from the Downtown Design Review Committee. And at Diridon, we were getting the request to incorporate in that building some TOD on the frontage so that it would really kind of activate the area around there. So we have allowed for that TOD space in their retail on that structure.
And we're committed to continue those DRCs too.
That's not what I heard from the joint CWG meeting. You had proposed these cost reductions and they rejected them. They said, we want iconic. So I'm just trying to reconcile what I heard from that meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I thought there was a lot of back and forth about the design features. I got a more positive read from those meetings, I guess, but the commitment we're making is the DRCs will continue. And I mean, we are nowhere close to finalizing designs about materials or the look and finish of the stations. That will go on for a while, and we're committed to keeping the DRCs working. And if the DRCs aren't working, we'll work with the members of the board and the local stakeholders to make them work.
I'm going to go to David.
All right, thank you. I apologize for before. I thought there was a longer list of people waiting to speak. Let me just start by saying that it's hard for me to take anything off the table at this point because I'm concerned that this project is at risk for lack of funding, and certainly I think we should make sure that all avenues for cost savings are still on the table. I did want to ask, I mean, I'm not an expert because I'm new to this about what Pat was talking about single bore coming back as a separate conversation for downtown. Certainly, we ought to be looking at all savings, although one of my questions has always been, we've already kind of invested and gone pretty far down the path of single bore from the Santa Clara side. Are there still opportunities that would be actually result in cost savings to change course at this point? I mean, at some point, we have to put this conversation to rest, right?
So I think that this is actually a very good, more pointed question, and I was going to follow up on it with Pat as well. I'm going to say where I think we are right now, and I'm going to ask the staff to verify and confirm that. So we have a project that we're working toward an FTA agreement. We have a project we presented to the federal government, and that project that we presented was single bore below grade in downtown San Jose, and that is what we got funding for. That $5 billion is for that project. So let me just say that's kind of a strong stop. In the interim, and I'm going to press on my colleague Pat a little bit for us to maybe talk this through in real time, we've gotten a lot of feedback from many people in the community who still feel like that issue should be litigated. What the step that we have formally taken, I mean, these are the actions, is we have a project, and within the parameters of the project we have cost savings that the staff has brought to us, or opportunities for an investigation of cost savings. We have not, as a board, said we want to reconsider the twin bore versus a single bore under downtown San Jose. What we have agreed to was taking a look at some ideas that Pat has raised and others about, being able to use twin to come into the Five Wound Station area. The issue that is before us separately, the ad hoc committee, which I forgot what I'm supposed to call it now, but the BART Phase 2 committee did ask staff to make sure that we had an apples-to-apples comparison for the public so we could be transparent about the decision we made years ago to go below, to use the current strategy that we're using. At the time that apples-to-apples comparison, for lack of a better term, is presented to the board would always have an opportunity to think about a new approach. I believe that train has left the station, but I also believe that the public has a right to know under why we made the decision we made with as much clarity as we can possibly present. So this, in my mind, is an issue around transparency and presentation to the public of the details of that decision.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And there's already sunk cost in the single bore approach. Single bore, we already are down a path that I also agree with you is that's already we're already well on our way to that approach, and I don't think we can change course at this point on the downtown portion. But I'm very interested in the concurrent tunneling from the east and an approach that could save money by twin bore from the east coming south from Berryessa towards where it would tie into the single bore. Question about that. My understanding from previous discussions, the critical path could be reduced by about a year if we were able to potentially do some concurrent tunneling. Is that right?
That is something that we're looking at this month. So right now, that I don't think a savings has been clearly shared at this point.
Okay.
Okay.
Obviously, there's some upfront capital expense for buying some new equipment and other things that have to be taken into consideration, along with the potential cost savings on the timeline. But the hope is that there's some savings, some significant savings that could be achieved by doing this, and I think we should be pursuing it for sure. I'm going to give I wasn't part of this board when we were having conversations about station design and about how we might save money on station design. I'm of a slightly different viewpoint about station design versus overall project. Obviously, as I mentioned, our entire project is at risk of losing federal funding if we aren't clear about where we're going. Also, obviously, we don't have the funding to do everything we want to do. I think we need to be open to being bolder on station design savings. I mean, in my opinion, a transit user experience is based on convenience, based on lots of factors that don't always necessarily have to do with attractiveness of a station. They have to do with ease of moving through the station, amenities within a station. And what I do know for sure is that user experience depends on having a transit system. And to me, that should be our primary focus. I'm not prepared personally. I wouldn't be prepared to take anything off the table, but I know conversations have been had before I've been on this board about what we're not willing to compromise on. But I'm just really nervous about not compromising and then throwing out losing the way more and not even having a project to move forward. So that's my view on it. I have a question about station design. Is there a way to sort of provide tiers of station design with different levels of cost that we could say, hey, if we had the resources, this is what we do, but here's ways we could save money?
Yeah, I would, so right now with the stations themselves, we did start off with that approach. Internally, we have a tracking mechanism where the stations are, option 1 is just doing minimal amount of cost savings. Option 2 was doing a little bit more, and then option 3 was a little more drastic. Right now, what we're showing is basically option 1 and 2. Option 3 was when we came back and presented more drastic changes as far as like the shaft getting smaller, and then that had the ripple effect of the escalators and all of that. So that was the one that option 3 just came off the table. But I hear what you're saying, like we could probably do something like that on what we're looking at now as far as the options that are still left, come back and show a tiered system there too.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, I know that there are things that will be our last resort, but unless we are able to come up with $700 million from the other categories and the minor station design changes, we have to at least know what in front of us, what other changes could be made that could get us to that $700 million. That's my opinion on it. So I'd like to see that, of course, making sure that we don't, keep so many options on the table that it makes it really hard for staff to get those things to us and done in this April timeline that we're talking about. That would be my preference. And then the last thing I was going to talk about was parking. I've been thinking about this all along. Look, as Berryessa and Milpitas were built with a huge amount of parking, my feeling is that commuters who are going to be using BART to go north and towards San Francisco and Oakland should be directed to Berryessa and Milpitas as the commuter stations. There's plenty of parking at those two locations. We know they're way overparked at this point. I hear you on the environmental impact report at Portugal, but I do think, at Little Portugal, but I do think we ought to keep that in our mind about how we can save money in this overall design, based on the fact that we've built stations that were already meant to be end-of-line commute stations north of there. And by the way, it's Warm Springs as well. Warm Springs, Milpitas, and Berryessa all have a lot of parking, and it's not clear to me yet. While there'll be some people who will park to go in other directions at Little Portugal, many of them are not much further from being able to get to the Berryessa station to park if they need to park to go somewhere on BART. So I would like to at least give my plug for that being an important area where we ought to look at cost savings.
Thank you. David, are you good?
Yeah, that's it, I think.
All
Thank you.
right, thank you. I want to go to Sergio, and then I'll go back around. think I lost my train. You didn't have another comment? Oh, it was you, Rosemary, sorry. And then Carmen, thank you.
Yeah, I want to go back to the refining the station designs, and it's not clear to me in terms of the design review committees and all of that, and I know a lot of this, I'm kind of a little bit like David, was done previous to my being on here. So it would be good for us to get a sense of, what's going on with them, like what, and maybe you have to engage more than just the people that have been coming. And I'm curious, you may have mentioned this before, but, when I think about a station and making it iconic or making it, really welcoming, I'm wondering if kind of what Councilmember Farley said in terms of, it's a place that you can make it really, really, not just a station, but more than a station, right? A place where people will hang out, want to be there, maybe have a coffee, maybe have lunch, or I don't know. And I'm just curious as to opportunities to do public-private partnerships, and how that could probably bring, other dollars to the table. And I don't know if you've already explored it, so I'm just asking.
So I think the best public-private partnership we've got on this project is the commitment Bernice mentioned a minute ago to the 60 million square feet of transit-oriented development. That's the way in which we're going to get the urban village to come into being in Little Portugal. That's the way we're going to have opportunities for people to, meet other commuters, get coffee, get rest, have a great play. Like it's going to come not just from the stations themselves, but from all of the transit-oriented development that we're working with the cities to make happen. So that the great place will be more than just the station itself. From a cost savings point of view, what we're trying to lock in is size, height, roof line, and orientation of the station, making sure we've got entrances on Santa Clara Street, things like that. Those decisions really drive the cost, and we're trying to lock those in now. I think the design review committees will have a lot of time. I mean, frankly, we have several years to really make decisions about finishes and materials and how they fit in with the TOD, transit-oriented development. So that when I hear you say private-public partnerships, I guess we're thinking about more than just the small station itself,
Right.
but the whole district.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Carmen.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. I'm going to concur with David Cohen. I think the main thing that we should be focusing is to cut, to make these cost savings. The reason being is if we do not do this cost savings, the whole project will be at risk. So I know some of these designs we're not happy with, but when you look at the bigger picture, because we're telling staff to do cost savings, we're asking you to do that, and I know some of these designs are are not really that great. They're like some of them are like boxes, but I think we have to look at the bigger picture and really decide, hey, do we really want to risk this project to move forward? And I want to make sure that this project moves forward. So we have to cut cost. That's the bottom line. And so, to me, that I think even the parking, I think that it should just stay as I would like your recommendation just to stay as it is. And in the future, when we do get more money, hopefully, we can always build a surface parking like a garage. But as I mentioned, I really do agree with David Cohen's concept. The whole project will be at risk if we don't make these cuts. So, and we can always in the future redesign. So, those are my thoughts. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? Suds, this is last time for Suds, and then I'm going to go. Then you're cut off, Suds. And Lynette?
Like a major cost savings is, of course, the muck and how we handle the muck. And I'm kind of surprised it didn't make it to this presentation, but, that's on the order, that's way bigger than the stations, if we can figure out how to deal with that. That's my final comment.
Thank you. And then Lynette, and then I'm going to go to Matt, and then and then Deb. Okay.
When we talk about the design and there's time to change possible designs. It's actually just the finishes, whether to go from granite to marble or something. But actually, if you move forward today, you're actually accepting these designs as to whether it'll be a circular building versus the square building. So we're really not going to be able to change much of the true structure of the design if you move forward today, because then that's the concern here. So we don't understand the cost savings, because having a circular building is also quite costly versus having a square building. But you're saying we just need to understand the height and the size, but truly, you're also accepting the true design of how it's presented today. And so what that is concerning, because, you know, many of us are not happy with what we're seeing today, but yet what you're telling us is truly what you can change is the finishes, but, you know, you're really not able to change the designs. And anyhow, when you go to change a design, it is costly. Our goal is to, you know, try to reach cost savings. And that's why when we lack the data on how much the cost savings truly are, we really don't know what we're dealing with, and we can't make the changes that we would really like to see. Thank you.
Can you maybe just respond to that?
Yeah, I think I might maybe try to reframe the question a little bit. What we're deciding here is to not do things like, as Monica said, shrink the cylinder, force passengers to make 3 or even 4 escalator runs to get down to the platform. In many ways, what we're actually doing is we're preserving a larger footprint, preserving the opportunity through the overall engineering and structure to provide the passenger experience that you've all made clear to us is very important. And I you know, there's more opportunity to get the look and feel right, and we're committed to do that. But I think the decision today is about actually preserving the passenger experience and not doing the more radical things that we were talking about as recently as a month ago that would have really changed the whole experience of passengers.
Right, but I was speaking to station designs as well. So I think, I understand that when you're talking about the interior and the access to getting down to the bottom of the station, but what I was speaking towards was the station designs. And I think my comments are somewhat, you didn't really address that.
So Tom, let me just make an observation. I think what did happen is they did bring a more severe presentation a couple of months ago, and the board, all of us said, no, don't do that. So you're right, what they're bringing here is it's a less, it's less severe, so that we can balance customer experience with cost savings. So you're right, we're moving up, but we're not moving back up to probably where we were when we started the project, so we're somewhere in the middle. So I do just want to acknowledge that while I concur with your realization that our how much movement we have is pretty limited, we are moving back from where we were. I think that's what he was sharing with you. All right, Matt and then Dev.
Yeah, thanks. I agree with a lot of what has been said, and I don't know how much disagreement there really is. A lot of it really is abstract, I think, to the point that was made, until we really truly understand the dollars and the exact trade-offs we're being asked to make. I think we probably would all agree, big picture, the most important thing is that we have a fully funded project. I think we have to, like, that is a core operating principle, and we've got to drive forward as quickly and thoughtfully as we can to have a fully funded project. That's the battle we're in. We luckily still have a lot of options out on the table. And the way I look at this is it's like a stack ranking of the things we're willing to do to get to that funded project. None of us want to be responsible for having to walk away from the project because we couldn't get it fully funded. So eventually the scope has to match the resources. No debate there. In that stack ranking, though, I do think we've been very clear that at the bottom of the stack, the last things we would consider, in fact, to David's point about single bore in downtown, may not even be feasible at this stage if we want to have a project in this decade, this generation, frankly, are things like deferring a station. Not going to happen. Tearing up the downtown with single bore is probably right above that. I would put sacrificing the passenger experience right above that. And there are luckily a whole bunch of other things on the stack that we should go through first. And I see a lot of them here, right? The yard reconfiguration, deferring the parking structures, maybe concurrent tunneling from each direction, reconfiguring the interior of the tunnel. We got a lot of options out on the table. So before we get too worried about the abstract debate, I do just want to contextualize, because we've been having this conversation. Some of us are newer to it than others, but I think the key is to go top down through that stack ranking, get those more refined designs, get those estimated cost savings, and help us understand, do we have to make the toughest trade-offs on the things lower on the stack? And I hope we never have to get to conversations about stations and tearing up the downtown, and it may actually not be feasible, frankly, at this point. So let's hope we don't have to go there. I will just say, and I'll end on this, on the customer experience, I do think, and I appreciate Suds and others, everybody, making comments about the importance of that customer experience or passenger experience and the design elements. I would hope that it would not be that expensive, even just looking at the exteriors of these, to have slightly more iconic designs. And I would agree that the Santa Clara station looks, to me, eye of the beholder, more iconic than the others. And are there things that can make it more unique, more memorable? Because the built environment really matters. It makes people either feel welcome or not, excited or not. We know our smaller city to the north, that little foggy city up there with the big golden bridge, that draws, some of the design, some of the arts and culture and design elements that they have invested in the city also make it a destination. Make an iconic city that punches way above its weight from a brand perspective, from a cultural perspective, for a reason. So I just don't want us to lose sight of the fact that those things matter. But yes, we're not going to get to Taj Mahal here, clearly. So anyway, I don't know if that's helpful, but at least that's how I'm thinking about it. And I think the sooner, team, that we can get to the specifics and the numbers and know if we've got a balanced project and what trade-offs are necessary, the better. Because I think we're all getting sick of the very abstract, what are we going to do? What do we have to get rid of? What are we going to lose? We just don't know until we get the hard numbers. Thanks.
Thank you. Carmen, and then Sergio. Oh, not Carmen. Okay. Oh, Tef. Sorry. I needed more sleep. Okay, sorry, Carmen.
No, I don't.
Oh, you're fine? Okay, Sergio.
No, I do.
Okay, after you speak, I'm going to get coffee, but go ahead, Deb.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Matt, for the stacked ranking. I completely agree, and I think you're right. I think we all are all saying exactly that. I have a slightly different question. You put in here concept only, subject to change, so I'm not going to comment on the way the stations look in these black and white renderings, but the O&M on each of them is increased, and I'm wondering why and what magnitude. So if we're value engineering or value architecting, I don't know what the word is, designing a station, why does that increase the operations and maintenance of the stations?
So I think some of that has to do with decisions we made to put as much of the station infrastructure facilities, which we used to call back of house, underground as much as possible, which I think was probably a good decision from a placemaking urban design point of view, but it is more expensive for BART and ultimately us to maintain items that are underground.
So this is increased operations and maintenance from the last time we saw this as opposed to from the original design, because it's back to the original design of putting things underground. We had originally said that, right?
I think this is comparing to the baseline of when it was above ground, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's sort of compared to the last design.
The last time we saw it.
basically, yeah.
Okay, I just want to be clear about that because I was not clear about that. And I do think in terms of an O&M and a TOD and placemaking, I would choose the TOD, which has the potential to offset the O&M, but also because the more people you get around the station, the more likely they are to use our service. So when we're making that trade-off, that's great. In Diridon, though, it's an increase in operations and maintenance, but a decrease in TOD opportunity and placemaking. So that looks like that wasn't the trade-off that was made. So what's the change in Diridon? I'm assuming that's the back of house is actually behind and not under. Is that what happened?
Yeah, there's line less. Yeah, there was more infrastructure above ground than there was previously.
Okay, so it would be helpful for us to know, getting back to Matt's comment about what the actual trade-offs are and what the dollar amounts are, what that looks like, because my understanding is that negates the opportunity for the TOD that we were expecting to have on that site. And given that we're looking to expand Diridon, I mean, that project is moving forward. I think we want to maximize TOD everywhere possible at Diridon. And now I'm wishing, Suds, that I had gotten involved in the Diridon the way you did in Santa Clara, because that looks like a bad trade-off to me. Increased O&M in the future, decreased TOD possibilities, which means not good for placemaking, but also not good for revenue. So it's two negatives in terms of revenue.
I think next time we come back with this, I definitely hear closer to actual dollars, the trade-offs can be quantified, and maybe a more detailed illustration of everything that goes into that, and not just pluses and minuses.
Yeah, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
Sergio, and then Suds is going to be so brief, and I'm going to tell you why. One, I want to be able to weigh in, but the other is that we have a closed session, and none of you can leave.
I just wanted to clarify.
No, I'm not you.
I'm sorry.
Not you yet.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sergio, and then you, and then me.
I'm not going to rehash the station design conversation, but I did want to emphasize something that came up a couple times, which is the importance of wayfinding within the station and customer experience in terms of ease of use. How obvious? I mean, I've been on subway stops in New York that, they're a street somewhere. It's not iconic design, but they'll have thousands and thousands of people because it's obvious. You get to where you need to go. It's a schedule that gets you there on time, and so I don't want to. As we're considering other kind of trade-offs in the station design, I think there are things that would be lower costs and higher impact, and that's where I want to start having some of those discussions.
Thank you. Suds.
Okay, I just wanted clarification. On this chart, does the plus mean it got better or it costs more? That was very confusing to me.
The plus that we're signifying there is that it got better. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, maybe we haven't had enough coffee. I'm not sure. So, it was on the Diridon one that showed a plus for.
Well, all of them say plus for O&M.
Um,
So
That means it got better.
That means it
O&M went down, yes.
Yeah,
oh, not the cost went up.
correct.
Oh, sorry about that. Apparently I haven't had enough coffee.
I know. I'm sorry.
I think
I'm rubbing
real
off on
numbers next time.
everybody.
Real
Thank you
numbers
for
will
that
clear that up.
clarity.
Thank you.
So just, I wanted to do just a couple things. One, I wanted to make points for both the last point and this one, just again, for my colleagues, which is that I do want to make sure that as we're looking at these significant changes, some of them that where we may be in contract with an agency already helping us, that we are engaging legal to take a look at all of our agreements, because there's going to be cost savings that are going to be significant in terms of whether or not we have a parking garage. And then we just have to get everybody to be using the dollars they have in a more assertive way. And I am still concerned that as we're talking through all of these things, there are a lot of consultants and a lot of partners attached to them. And I want to make sure we continue to look at all the savings, which is not just, structural, but even in terms of our service contracts. So I'm just going to say that out loud. And also, and also just to remind my colleagues that we've asked for, through the auditor, a more refined report back on contract structures, but also in terms of how we're managing invoices and stuff. And I know that doesn't sound related, but to me, it feels very related, because in a way, I feel like this part of this is sort of the piñata swing, like we're trying to hit the piñata and get all the candy out. That's what these are, but there are little smaller things that we need to do to make sure that we're keeping ourselves in check. And then I know we have a committee that'll be beginning to work on that. The other thing I just wanted to say is that I think I concur with almost all the points raised. One thing I would just really encourage is that when these report backs come back, I think the point that that Deb and Suds just sort of demonstrated is that the clarity of the trade-offs, and actually with Lynette's questions, it's just really important that the board understand what those are, so that because the folks who have to explain this to the community are not just you, it's the leaders of the community working groups, and they're incredibly important, and in the past have played a leadership role when they really understand things in terms of making sure the public does, but they're gonna have to make decisions that are pretty significant about the future of the project. So I know that's kind of a little in the category of Captain Obvious, but I think it would be even more helpful if it were really Captain Obvious. We don't have any action to take on this. This was, we do? I thought it was informational. Oh, action on this one, yes. Okay, so do we have a motion to approve this approach?
Yes, I'd like to move that we approve the staff recommendation, which is on page 1 under recommendation, with the addition of the paragraph, clarifying paragraph that on page 3, beginning with staff will continue advancing, etc.
I'll second.
Okay, I think the two are consistent based on what staff said, but the second paragraph makes it clear what the plan and intention is. Thanks.
I think that's fine. One thing I would request, and this may be more for the clerks, but I do think when this comes back, making sure that we are reflecting the feedback we got from the board in addition to the action that's listed here, including just the making sure that we're following the frameworks that were given as well in terms of how to get report backs. Is the maker and the seconder comfortable with that?
Yeah, is that specific language or just?
Well, I think that there were a number of concepts that were raised that I just want to make sure don't get lost. And one of them is how we explain the trade-offs that was just discussed. The other, though, I think just making sure that staff is following up on the direction of the committees, the design committees, all of that.
I think I'm comfortable with staff having captured that, and then,
Yeah, just to make sure it's also in our minutes. Okay, with that, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. No. Oh, I apologize. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Burt?
yes.
Cohen?
Aye.
Davis?
Yes.
Foley?
Aye.
Jane?
Yes.
Kamei?
Aye.
Mahan?
Aye.
Montano?
Yes.
Lopez?
Aye.
Chavez?
Yes.
That passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to go to closed session, and the board's going to hear. He did. Yeah, he was one of the first.
But Lynette doesn't vote because Pat's votes.
All right, we're good? Thank you. So I also want to note VTA Board Directors took an action to continue the November 7th closed session item, Public Employee Performance Evaluation 9.1.c, for the general manager, and we will discuss that immediately after 2.21. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak to us on closed session? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public comment, and I will ask if my colleagues, why wouldn't we just stay in here? All right, I'm going to ask that the room be cleared except for the staff that need to be here for closed session. I'm going to go get some right now. All right. You wanna start?
Recording in progress.
We are reconvening from closed session to open session. I'm going to turn to Evelyn for a report out on closed session.
Thank you, Chair. The board did not take any action on special meeting closed session item 2.21. And you will address the continued meeting from last night.
Thank you. Item 9.1.c, we need to continue to the next, our board meeting on December the 5th. And after that, there is no further action. Is that accurate?
That is accurate, Chair. Thank you.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you all very, very much.